welcome to it. I am Andile Ncube. This is Sports Not Amplified with Andile. Thank you so much to the Touchdown team. I love it when we cover Africa. We have a lot of people that watch us live on Facebook. We're live on Facebook right now that come from Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, Nigeria. So absolutely love it. And that's why tomorrow we're going to be giving you so much content from the continent as well. But we appreciate the love. So hearing so much continental talk on the Touchdown was something that I quite enjoyed from Poppy and Thibaut Touch there. But hey, it's a world of sport, isn't it? South Africa coming out of work, most of you driving home or arriving at home now and sitting down and soaking in the news that Bafana Bafana have lost their first game in over a year and a half. That's how well we'd been doing. We'd gone on a 12-game non-losing streak. We'd drawn in 1 game. We had not lost a game in 12 matches. And all of that just to lose it to Rwanda when we could have won that game and put ourselves in peak position to qualify for the World Cup. But, and this is a big but, everybody and anybody that listens to the show or follows me on social media knows one thing, that I've come out in support of Bafana Bafana and their coach Hugo Broos in particular. A long time ago already. I said I'm nailing myself to the cross that is Hugo Broos. I think that he's the right man for the job right now. I think right now there's no better man for the job. He is the perfect person for a job. Even after this loss, I feel so. And I say that so that I'm able to justify what I'm about to say. Because I don't think that game should have been played today. I don't think that game should have been played today. Too many odds against us. Number one, the synthetic pitch that we're playing on. South Africa, we play on normal pitches. It's grass pitches all along. So that already was disadvantaged. But there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But what is wrong is it is a pitch that does not drain. After heavy rains, that was not conducive for good football. The goals that went in were weak. Yes, some mistakes, but weak. The match was it wasn't up to scratch. And I'd love to hear what you've got to say. So I have not lost faith in Bafana Bafana. I still agree with the fact that we can go to the World Cup. 086 000 2160. I'd love to hear from you. 060 552 7303 as well. We're going to be speaking a little bit of Formula One with Sasha in a bit. But I want you to hear what Hugo Broos had to say after the match.
It's unbelievable that I think we lost the game in the first 20 minutes. We were not, or 25 minutes. We were not ready for the kick and rush football of Rwanda. Even I told the players that they have to be careful with that. And in those first 20-25 minutes, we give 2 presents, 2 goals. Who are a little bit, how can I say it? Not ready to go in duel. In the second goal, we have the ball and then we let them take in and score. So again, the first 20-25 minutes was not good.
That's Hugo Broos complaining about his team here. We gave away those 2 goals. It was a present for Rwanda, but he also bemoans the state of that pitch.
It's unbelievable that a qualifier for World Cup, that it's played on such a pitch. It's impossible. But okay, it is what it is, and I think that CAF and FIFA has to be stricter in the rules where you're going to play. You're talking about professional football. You're talking about qualifiers for the most biggest tournament of professional football, the World Cup. And then you have to play on such a pitch. Secondly, I think it's not normal when you arrive in the country that you still have to travel 3 hours with bus before you are on your final destination. Sorry. I will not say that this is the reason why we lost the game. No, not at all. But I think that those things have to change because we are 2023.
2023, what was he going to say there? Those things have to change. It's the conditions we've become accustomed to when playing on the continent, isn't it? The travel arrangements that aren't great. The boys didn't look their snappy self. They didn't look their fresh self. I think actually in commentary, if you watched it, it was exclusive to us here on the SABC. And in commentary, you heard Uche Owudla speaking about the fact that the boys don't look fresh. They just aren't coming across as fresh. And you can see that. I mean, if you're getting off a 3-hour bus after having traveled all the hours to get to Rwanda and you could be stuck in a bus again and the conditions of the pitch look like the way they did, Unfortunately, those are things you have to contest with on this continent in order to win. So that's not an excuse. It's not going to happen once, twice. It's going to happen over and over and over again. But I give boys a pass for that one. I give them a pass for that one. I don't know how you feel about it. We'll get into it. But right now, let's take a quick break. When we come out of it, Sasha Martinegro is going to be speaking to us about all things Formula One. It's 13 after the hour 6 on the Mighty Metro FM. This is Sports That Amplified with Andile. I am Andile Ncube. Thank you so much to all of you watching on Facebook. We see you, all of you watching on the different platforms that we are on. We really do appreciate it. And of course, at the end of the show, if you did miss it or if you ever miss one, just go to our TikTok. It's SNAWA, Sports That Amplified with Andile abbreviated, on our social media. That includes Twitter, YouTube, as well as Instagram. Right now, we're going to have a conversation about Las Vegas, because the Las Vegas Grand Prix is in the books. It's done. But it was a problematic weekend in Sin City, wasn't it? The challenges are not over for the drivers and the teams. The return of F1 to the city after 40 years was certainly one that delivered a spectacle. It was not without its issues, though, which took a toll on everyone in the paddocks. And you had the poster boy for Formula One at the moment in Max Verstappen saying he doesn't quite enjoy the street races. He didn't like being in Vegas. And it proved to be a bit of a problem, not only for the drivers, but for some of the fans as well, who had paid good money and are saying, hey, return our money, because we didn't get our full money's worth. Sasha now joins us. Sasha's a freelance broadcaster who, for the many years that I've been in South Africa, was for me the face of motor vehicles and motor racing. Sasha Martinegro now joins us. Sasha, always great to have you. Thank you so much for coming through.
Andile, always a pleasure to speak to you, my friend.
What was going on in Las Vegas?
Well, you know, I mean, listening to what you had to say there, I think we have to dissect everything. If I sit there and look at the race itself, it was one of the most spectacular sights I'd ever seen. And yes, of course, it's television, so we got different camera angles. It was magnificent. I thought the racing was really, really excellent. And, you know, regardless of the various media reports in terms of what the costs were and prices were dropped because it was too expensive, I'm not entirely sure because I wasn't there. But I think Las Vegas really did itself proud for its return to Formula One.
It almost feels as if F1 is really, really desperate. I mean, it's worked out. We saw, I think, in Miami, and we're seeing now. It's really desperate for that American market. It is the biggest sporting market in the world. If you get things right in the USA, you're off to the bank, really.
Yeah, listen, I mean, United States has always been, one could say, slightly challenging for the world of Formula One, in the sense that they have so many different motor series, NASCAR, IndyCar, and so many other series of racing. However, they have raced there before in the past, and it has been successful.
40 years ago, I think, was the last time.
Yes, in Las Vegas. I mean, they've raced in Detroit. They raced in Indianapolis on a track that didn't really suit Formula One. Austin, Texas, I think, is magnificent. And Liberty, who owns Formula One now, is American. I think the biggest conundrum, Andile, for the world of Formula One is most of the fans of the world of Formula One come from Europe, and now a lot coming out of Asia, and of course also out of Africa. And they are pretty much purists. They love the racing. They do love the spectacle. However, most fans are not really impressed by too much glitz and glamour. They don't want too many people on the grid. They don't need too many celebrities. They want to just see some racing. So America's trying to break that mold.
Yeah, no, I mean, once you go to America, then it's the glitz and glam, isn't it? We've seen it with football, with Messi. We saw what happened last year.
Sure.
You know, with every celebrity you can think of being out in the paddock. It was great to see. But the other thing about this race is, once you have the drivers complaining, I mean, Max Verstappen, the poster boy for F1 right now, saying he doesn't enjoy the street races, and he's seen the Las Vegas one. He wasn't impressed into it before even racing in it this past weekend. He wasn't happy with it. That's going to leave quite an indelible mark for people like me who watch and live through the drivers.
You bring up a very good point, and I mean, don't forget, you and I are the fans, and we sit and we go, yeah, Max says it's, not that great. I think Max must probably have a little bit of a different view now after winning it and the way that he won it, there were probably too many emotional events that he had to do and was forced to do, and standing up on their sort of outside their pit boxes and shown off to the world like, I don't know, like...
Sasha.
So I understand his frustration, but, they are the ones that are...
Oh, no, man. To me, let's just take Sasha back and try calling back. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap it up with Sasha speaking all things Formula One. All right, 21 after the hour 6. I'm hoping that Sasha's line is better. We can hear him audibly and perfectly clean. Sasha, my producer Timmy just sent me one of the quotes of the weekend. It's from Max Verstappen, who said 99% show, 1% sporting event, Las Vegas.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me better, and I apologize to all of the listeners for the breakup there. Andile, I think he said that just purely out of some kind of frustration. Somewhere along the line, it's not really Max's spirit to do that kind of thing. But yes, it resonates amongst all of the fans across the world. However, I will say that anybody who perhaps had some negativity about the race and the spectacle, I think, was silenced on Sunday morning our time, in the pure sense of going, wow, that was really a magnificent Grand Prix. It looked spectacular on TV. I'm sure the people in the crowds and everybody in Las Vegas had a spectacular time, and I think Formula One did an outstanding job in launching Las Vegas Formula One Grand Prix.
I wanted to ask you, and because we get this so much here on the show, people saying, oh, it's so boring. We know Max is going to win. Oh, it's so boring. But then I thought about it, and I said, then you should have been bored for the last 7 years when Hamilton was winning it. You should have been bored when Schumacher was having his turn as well. What is it about Max that's not as likable? What is it about Max that's not as poster boy, everyday guy, is rooting for you?
It's such a wonderful comment that you make there, Andile. People love and hate drivers. There are people who love Lewis Hamilton. There are people who hate Lewis Hamilton. There are people in the days that hated Senna. They loved Senna.
Oh,
they loved
Senna. What a man.
Exactly. Schumacher, they loved him. Those who hated him. Vettel, the same thing. And then all of a sudden you've got this Max Verstappen. And Max Verstappen is one of those drivers that you love to hate because he's got that, don't forget, he's only 25 or 26 years old. He's got that arrogance about him, but he's a magnificent racing driver. And the fact that he is perhaps beating somebody else's favorite driver always makes rubs the salt into the wound. But we must never forget that Formula One and anything in life actually goes in a cycle. And Red Bull are riding a crest of a wave, just as Mercedes-Benz did with Lewis Hamilton for many, many years. And hopefully next year we have something a little bit more competitive. But I will tell you that Max Verstappen is the number one driver in Formula One, and even if you put any other driver in the same car as him, I think they're going to struggle to beat him, and that's what Red Bull has. They have someone called Max Verstappen, and in my opinion, he's in my top 3 greatest ever racing drivers already.
What? Of all time?
I mean that sincerely, of all time, yeah.
Then I have to know who you
really believe that.
You open this can. Now I need to know who's your 1 and 2.
Number 1 to me will always be Michael Schumacher, and number 2, and a lot of people are going to find this absolutely bizarre, Kimi Räikkönen.
No. No.
Yeah, it doesn't mean the number of titles that you have in your career. It
Clearly not.
How good you are. Yeah, to me, Michael Schumacher, Kimi Räikkönen, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton.
Wow.
Yeah, and then Senna.
That is the weirdest driver's top 10 or top 5 really I've ever heard, but nonetheless.
Good. What's your top 4?
I mean, it has to be Hamilton, Schumacher.
Hamilton, Schumacher, good.
Then Antoine Senna third. That's how I'd have mine. That would definitely be my top three. But while we're speaking about this, I thought it was a mistake for Lewis to sign on with
Yes.
with Mercedes again. I think maybe perhaps made a move when his contract did end in order to try and get that eighth. I don't see Mercedes being able to catch up to what Red Bull have done, not even what Ferrari have done at the moment.
Never underestimate Mercedes-Benz and never underestimate Lewis Hamilton. Those are two things that we must always acknowledge. Lewis Hamilton is a magnificent racing driver. Mercedes is a brilliant organization. I'm sure they're working and trying to find some kind of solution. Don't forget, Lewis Hamilton has created his whole brand around Mercedes-Benz, even though he's got LH44 and etc. For him now, who's going to really sign him? I would love to have had Lewis go to Ferrari. I think it would have just been magnificent for Ferrari, magnificent for Lewis Hamilton. But Lewis clearly sits and says, I'm entrenched with Mercedes-Benz and I want to do it with Mercedes-Benz. And if Mercedes, we know, they give Lewis the right car, he's going to be fantastic. Whether he's going to be as quick as Max, we don't know. But he's definitely, on the fastest guys on Formula One right now, you've got Charles Leclerc, you've got Max Verstappen, you've got Lewis Hamilton, and perhaps a guy like Lando Norris.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us, Sasha. The season's over for now, so when it does return again, we'll have more conversation. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure. And now sit and go and think about Kimi Raikkonen.
Sasha Martinegro there, former SABC colleague, of course, speaking to us about all things Formula One, a freelance broadcaster who just loves his cars, but I don't agree with his top three. I really don't. 28 after the R6 on the mighty Metro FM. Kass Naidoo is going to be joining us, and we'll be speaking all things cricket, reflecting on the Cricket World Cup, but also just reflecting on the Proteas in particular. I have to give it to my friend. I have to give her flowers. She is the absolute beacon of broadcasting. If you watch cricket in South Africa, the only name that comes to mind as far as anchoring is concerned was Kass Naidoo. She was the face of SABC cricket for a very long time, and now she's doing so on an international platform. She anchored the final, not just to South Africans, but to the world. She anchored the final of the ICC World Cup, the Cricket World Cup, to the entire world. And I'm very proud of her, so we'll be taking her in a while. But before we do that, before we get her on the line, let's do this. 18:30 on the mighty Metro FM. If you missed it a little bit earlier, Bafana Bafana went down to Rwanda by 2-0. The coach, Hugo Bruce, was not happy with the pitch that they played on. I'd love to hear your views on that there. I'm going to be taking Kass Naidoo to speak all things cricket in a little bit, but here is what Coach Hugo Bruce had to say.
It's unbelievable that a qualifier for World Cup, that it's played on such a pitch. It's impossible. But okay, it is what it is, and I think that CAF and FIFA has to be stricter in the rules where you're going to play. You're talking about professional football. You're talking about qualifiers for the most biggest tournament of professional football, the World Cup, and then you have to play on such a pitch. Secondly, I think it's not normal when you arrive in the country that you still have to travel 3 hours with bus before you are on your final destination. Sorry, I will not say that this is the reason why we lost the game. No, not at all. But I think that those things have to change because we are 2022.
Good evening, Andile.
Is what you meant to say there. I'll be taking your voice notes in a little bit on 060-552-7303. Listen, still in Hugo, I believe. Me. Still in Hugo, I believe. Another person who is synonymous with belief is Kass Naidoo. Because, listen, in Kass, I believe. Kass joining us now, founder of G Sports Awards for Women, and of course, the best anchor of cricket in the world. And I can say that because you saw in the final of the Cricket World Cup, there she was, shining beacon of our profession, taking it to the world. Kass, welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us.
It's so lovely to be on the show as always, and I love talking cricket with you.
Kass, firstly, congratulations. I mean, it was such a huge honor. It was one that I was expecting I wasn't shocked by it. You anchored the final of the World Cup, not just to South Africa, which you've done plenty of times, broadcasting in South Africa for South Africans, but on the world feed, everybody around the world listening and watching you. That's an absolutely I don't even know how to describe it, but it was awesome to watch you. It was amazing. It was so great to see one of our own who came through these corridors owning the world like that.
I've literally taken this call from your show, having just walked through the door after being away for 8 weeks, and I've spent 10 minutes with my kids, and I said, I have to go on, and I need to talk to Andile, and I'll be back. I haven't actually had a chance to think about what happened, but what I'll tell you is, when South Africa were knocked out of the semi-finals, I was sad, disappointed, because I felt that this was a team that potentially could have gone all the way, and we'll talk about that. But I was just happy that I could get home to the kids. I was like, I've been away so long. And they're literally like, Mom, we really want South Africa to do well, but we really need you home. And then the ICC called me and said, we would like you to stay behind and host the final. It took me a day to really kind of flip around from going home to be mom to 3 kids to now hosting the final of the Men's Cricket World Cup. I had previously done it 20 years ago for SABC. It was on my debut. I was going to host 10 games, and SABC said, host the final at Wanderers in front of 30,000 people. So it was already a huge high in 2003. And that was always the biggest highlight. And then Sunday came and just wiped me out, all expectations that I've ever had of my career. And in front of 100,000 people in Ahmedabad, next to Ricky Ponting and Dinesh Karthik, I got to bring in this World Cup coverage to the world.
Amazing.
Wow. All I can say is there are so many women in sport in our profession that are doing well in South Africa, and I no longer feel that I am the one that is leading the way. I feel like there's a wave of us leading the way. Julia Stewart is doing well in England. Natalie Germanos at the World Cup. Krista Arnold was a digital insider. Kweli Zondo was part of the T20 World Cup for women in South Africa. So there's pretty much a big wave coming, and it was bound to happen with 20 years of hard work that we put in.
Well, I'm eternally proud of you leading the way in the way that you're doing, and of course all those amazing women. And if you want to know more in this aspect, please just go to the archives of G Sports Awards, follow them on all their social media, and you'll see the work that Kass is talking about that is being done by South Africans across the globe. But Kass, let's get back now. Firstly, India, sheepishly losing the final of the World Cup. I feel like if you're going to at home, the way that they played up until the World Cup, if you're going to lose that World Cup, I feel they needed to have given a bigger fight than what that was. It didn't feel like a bigger fight to me.
There's mixed views. There's always going to be mixed views because they won 10 out of 10. Every indication, especially in home conditions, with the big support, was they were going to win the final. Indulge me because I see it totally differently. If you want Australia out of the World Cup, you've got to trip them up in the group stages. It's where they stay stalled. They haven't even entered the tournament. They lost the first 2. They built momentum. The Maxwell mania of 200 gave them that unreal belief that they can bounce back from any situation to win again. So 91-7, they go on and they chase down Maxwell, scores 200. It has pumped up the entire team. They walked into Kolkata. South Africa won the toss, right? And some would say, cloudy conditions, you should have bowled first. But in a knockout game, you get runs on the board. So, yes, good toss to win. And then Australia hunted them down in the first 10 overs. I mean, sitting up there, watching, being on the field, looking at them warming up, they knew that they had gotten out of jail in the group stages. So when you have nothing to lose, you can play with a will to win. And I thought Pat Cummins was just a brilliant leader. He really came good in the final. Everything came together for him. So Australia beat India. India had a phenomenal campaign, 10 out of 10. Kind of reminded me of 96 when South Africa was just winning everything and then got bombed out in a knockout game. This loss will hurt so much because I've seen it firsthand straight after the game, walking through airports. People are absolutely dejected, like how we felt in 99, like how we felt in 2002. So Australia just streets ahead of us. If we could bottle it, we'd become a winning nation in every sport. They just believe they can win and they go on and do it.
What was the mood like in India? I mean, if we're going to judge it on what we saw at the stadium, I can imagine it was a depressed country that evening all the way till the next day, and maybe, still continues. from the high of everything that they've done. I mean, was watching them celebrating every win, celebrating the record-breaking Sasha Martinegro's records tumbling, all of that. It built it up to such a great final. They're going to win it at home. When they didn't, what's the mood like outside of the stadium? What's the mood like in the country?
Because we've experienced it a few times, I kind of felt for the Indian fans. What I have seen, though, they've been quite resolute in the aftermath of it. I think the first a few hours, especially like when the Proteas lose, you have that numb feeling. I think there was that kind of numbness. And the next morning, people were still talking about it, but they're so proud of this team, and they should be. I mean, have a look at it. Probably the most formidable Indian batting lineup in many, many years. You've got the power of Sharma up top. You've got Kohli. You've got the bowlers. It all works out for them. South Africa's not the only team that chokes. What I realized working so closely with this World Cup, pressure's a strange thing. And players that have been consistent and have been really killing it, other players who also want to do well. Someone's going to win.
You use the forbidden C word there. Did we choke, or did we come out at the right time because we had over-delivered on the promise of what this team has in the first place?
So I'd like to start by saying that without Anvik Nokia, South Africa were always going to be under pressure from a bowling side, bowling perspective, because I thought that, he added that leadership. Kagiso had someone alongside him, Lungi, they all kind of worked together, and so he wasn't there, and the pressure was on Marco Jansen, who I thought had a phenomenal World Cup. So did Gerald Coetzee. I mean, have a look at two of the leading wicket takers of the World Cup were two World Cup debutants from South Africa. So you're ticking those boxes. South Africa had a phenomenal campaign. Man, they were the talk of the World Cup. Everyone wants to see South Africa get across the line in the knockout game. And as I said, Australia hunted South Africa down the first 10 overs with the ball. And then you suddenly got Aiden Markham and Heinrich Klaassen and everyone kind of moving up and having to bat in the overs that, they shouldn't be batting that early up. So Australia just were able to pounce on South Africa. And the number of maidens they were able to get through, South Africa didn't do themselves any, good by dropping catches. So can you grab the big moments in a knockout game? And I thought that Australia did that so well. Pat Cummins held on to an absolute blinder running back, dismissing Quinton de Kock. And then you got Travis Head with a ridiculous catch, a couple of overs. I mean, he took Heinrich Klaassen's wicket, and bang, bang, South Africa could have gotten to 240. We'd be having a different conversation, probably be on a trophy tour by now. But at the same time, could South Africa have gotten across the line in the final? Because that cauldron atmosphere, you've got to just learn about it. Ian Smith joked, and I don't think he was joking, actually. He said, hey, what needs to happen is you've got to lose a final before you win one. And unfortunately, New Zealand didn't even get into the final. So they've got their own issues. So as I said, I don't think choking is exclusive to South Africa. We've just become the poster killer.
There's a lot of talk at the moment on that choking being placed solely or largely at the door of Themba Bavuma. Not a hero's welcome is what we came back to. It was very reminiscent of why maybe Smith didn't want to come back the last time around. But I want us to talk about Themba Bavuma in particular. The decision made not only to bat first, and then the decisions made in field as to which bowlers to bring in at which time as well. Then his own batting too. Have a thought about that, Kaz. Let me take a very quick break. We'll be back. It's exactly 18:44 in the mighty Metro FM, speaking to international broadcaster and ICC cricket commentator as well, Kass Naidoo. Kass, thank you so much once again for joining us. We're speaking about the Proteas, and the large focus in the question I'd asked you was Themba Bavuma throughout the tournament, but also in the final. One, does he play the final? Should he have played the final? He's come back, and one of the things he said is, guys, we make the best decisions we could make, and he's shutting down the noise from the internet. What do you make of the Themba Bavuma argument throughout the tournament, but particularly in the final?
I'd like to think that Themba has the support of other leaders in the team, so it's a collective decision. I don't think any team just has one captain who makes the decisions. I think that Pat Cummins would have the think tank, and I'm assuming that Themba has the same. One of the questions that I had was, if he wasn't 100% fit, why was Themba being risked in a semi-final? Especially we were in a position to beat Australia, quite a strong team, two teams that know each other so well, but that is why it was such a thrilling game. Miller played the innings of his life. I mean, this wasn't a typical South African loss in a semi-final. They fought like absolute soldiers. So I am really proud of them. The question I have around Themba was really about whether, if he was not fit enough to play, should the decision have been made that he not play and that Weaver Hendricks plays and Aiden captains, or go with 2 all-rounders, get Andile in, because you can never have enough good bowling and he's a good finisher. Were those discussions taking place, or was it just that Themba will captain in the semi-final? Because if that was the situation, then perhaps we need to start making decisions that are, more broadly based, like that. Him making a 50 in a semi-final, for instance, would have been absolute gold. But he was moving around a bit gingerly, and he didn't look 100%. And then he said that at the top. So I think, from that perspective, I think those are some of the questions I would have around him. Around his batting, Rob Walter had a press conference, and Rob said, prior to this World Cup, Themba was actually our best batter in one-day cricket in the country. Right? He had a phenomenal run. He's had a poor World Cup, and geez, I can tell you the number of players that had poor World Cups. They would have come with big aspirations and had poor World Cups. Themba, Josh Butler, there were a couple of other really important players who just didn't have a World Cup. I mean, Mitchell Starc had a tough World Cup. There wasn't enough swing up front, so he was just not really having a good World Cup. And did he come into his own in the knockout? He did. So everyone's had different campaigns. But around Themba, he will have to make decisions. The noise around him, he's got to shut it out. He really has to. Everyone's going to have a view. Asking me, should Themba be let go of? I'm not being paid to make those decisions. I do think Enoch Nkwe, I do think that Rob Walter, I do think all the important leaders in cricket need to be supporting Themba. This isn't the Themba against the public or the public against Themba. So yeah, those are some of the comments I have. I think South Africa's had a phenomenal World Cup. I'm so proud. Everyone, I mean, Andile taking them across the line was rusty against Afghanistan. New heroes being born. Same with India, it's because you bottled in a knockout game doesn't negate the great campaign that took place, and that Kohli was phenomenal. 51-day international.
What a showman!
I mean, that's wild. That is wild. So this World Cup has really showed us that sometimes the luck of the draw. I mean, but mostly you've got to go in there and absorb pressure. It's like being throttled and someone saying breathe easy. That's basically what it is. And I'm not sure how many of us can manage that.
Kass, before I let you go, your highlight of the World Cup?
My highlight of the World Cup is just really the World Cup debutant standing up. There were many highlights. We'll talk about Kohli and everyone will. But if you look at Rachin Ravindra, Joel Coetzee, Marco Jansen, Dilshan Madushankar, there's just players that just stood out. It was their first World Cups. We will talk about them as legends maybe in years to come. And really hats off to Australia, man. You got to love to hate them, but guess what? You give them a sniff, they take home the cup.
Guys, I really appreciate you taking time away from your kids. Please pass my love to Daniel, Ella, Luke, and Rake as well. Tell them that we really, really appreciate the work you do and for them sharing you with us. Thank you so much.
We'll chat soon. Take care, Andile.
She's out of here. Kass Naidoo. When I hand it over to you, there's a lot to talk about. If you want to go into that top 3, what's your top 3 in F1? Malcolm, you're a big F1er. Top 3 of all time. You're taking my listeners' time, so be quick here.
Hamilton, number 1. 2, Sebastian Vettel. And 3, I'm going for Alonso.
Alonso?
Yes.
Let's take a break. When we come back straight to your voice notes, you can send them to 060-552-7303. Call on 086-000-2160.
Drop us a voice note on 060-552-7303.
Waking up, down turned up.
Good evening, Andile. This is Matebola. Andile, I will start by saying thanks for SABC1 for showing the game. Secondly, to the game itself. Yeah, that game was not supposed to be played. The pitch was so bumpy. The ball couldn't even move. That pitch was horrible. That's what I saw. And those goals I can see, but the pitch was not good for football. This is Matebola.
Yeah, but also we've got ourselves to blame somewhat, and Dr. Kumalo said it, adaptation. We didn't adapt to the conditions, did we? We still tried to play carpet football, small little passes, play the ball backwards to our keeper, and let's build from the back. We didn't adapt.
Hola, ma.
Hey, hola.
My surprise is we can't complain with the pitch every time. Look at the Zimbabwean team. other players, they even arrived there in Rwanda from Europe and played the following day, but they managed to draw with Rwanda. Yet that team from Zimbabwe have been banned for 1.5 years or so, not playing competitive games. And they never even play friendly matches or what. Let us not come with excuses every time when we lose. The guys were so comfortable. They thought they already win the game before they play. But life goes on. Let them soldier on and focus on the next coming games. Dango.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that one. And you're spot on. You know, I don't think it's making excuses, but it's explaining maybe perhaps. But it can be seen as that as well. And you're right about Zimbabwe. I mean, you do remember Zimbabwe were banned by FIFA for political interference for a very long time. And they didn't play matches. And I remember there was a time when they went, I think it was 12 games without a victory. Zimbabwe. So to see Zimbabwe back and doing so well, getting a draw against Nigeria as well, it's looking good for the Zimbabwe at the moment.
Andile le para haleng hal mapala. Hat like to Bafana Bafana, hat like to go Bruce Andile. You know, a game of football, I not there for Makalabe. It's win or lose. It was a bad day today, my brother. Mohele, refe go Bruce chance. Other prove or to qualify for World Cup. Jimmy Mago the busy of Mazebedangi.
Zimbabwe went to Rwanda, same stadium, 0-0. And then they hosted Nigeria, 1-1. Those are the teams we're going to be playing. That's what we need to get used to. We've done the difficult part now. How do we try to get through the rest? That's going to be the big question. Do we have one more? Let's play one more.
Greetings to you, your colleagues, and to your listeners. The last time Bafana Bafana won, it was against Benin, and Sundowns players got all the credit and the praises. So now that we lost, I think we should also put the blame on them. Because it is said that they are the ones who are carrying the team. So when we can work one way, that when we win, we praise them. But when we lose, we can blame them. No, it doesn't look like that.
And I agree with you, because I said it here, I think on the Monday. I said, guys, this supporting by team doesn't work in the national team. And if you're a Sundowns supporter and you are saying, no, Sundowns is carrying, that goal was made in Sundowns, then you need to come back and say, ish, Mudawa and Runwen there in that goal, it was a Sundowns goal. So no, let's not mix things up here. Hey, remember that club football is back after an international break, and what a weekend we have in store. There are some tasty, tasty fixtures on the horizon, and there's no place you should rather bet than with Betway. Top up today and get extra back with Betway's Top Up Tuesday special. The action never stops with Betway. Let's take some of your calls. Let's go to Bloom. Ubibi. Hey, my little brother's called Ubibi. Bibi.
What's up? How you doing?
No, I'm good, man. What's your full name, Bibi?
My name is actually Kibi. My name is Kebang.
Oh, okay. Hey, Tibung went to BB there. But anyway, let's go for it. You watched the game?
Look, Andy, I watched the game. Katis Katsam watched the game when I'm I don't wanna lie. I agree with the first comment that you said when you spoke and said Lekuno. I think was Doctor Who. The team. Was by Sizwe Ugla. The team looked tired. The boys looked like they hadn't rested. It's like they didn't even know each other when they were playing. And I think first half, there was those mistakes. For me, the game shouldn't have happened on that type of pitch, but we know how Africa is. Remember when Mark Fish had his eye knocked out? We know how Africa is, and these are things that we must expect as South Africa. But I feel like second half, the boys didn't adapt. They didn't rethink the strategy to say, hey, this passing thing I said in Zeli, let's try something else, Andile, I'm disappointed because I'm such a fan of the boys in Kalangaba Kulumela all the time.
But come on, Gibi, you can't, in the last 12 games, 13 games being this one, they've only lost one. You have reason to support them. You have reason to support them.
This is a bad loss. I think everyone expected minimally a draw. That's what South Africans were expecting. I think even the boys themselves, a little bit in the back of their mind, they thought they still had the game under wraps. Sizobuya second half. They didn't really show Leo Hanga like, let me say, on the 54th minute when we realize, good day, things are changing. There's a certain hunger that you need to show now. You know, we really want to score. I didn't see that. Like, I didn't see a guy. In any case. But
well, let's talk 2024. We've got a lot of World Cup qualifiers there. I think we play 5 games next year. We play 5 games next year in the qualifiers. So we'll have the conversation. And Kibi, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Let's go to Peter. Peter's out in Brits. Peter.
Yeah, Andile.
Hey, sharp, Peter. What about Bafana?
Yeah, Bafana. 3 things that I want to focus on why we didn't do well this day. Firstly, the pitch was so bad, Andile, due to that water lock. But there's nothing that we can do. That means CAF or FIFA, they must do something about things like this. But the other thing, Andile, that we cannot run away from it. The mistake by with our 2 defenders there. This is the problem. Then the other thing is the striker department, Andile. First half, we didn't even have a shot on target.
But I don't think that's a striker's department as much, because if you look at the game, were they getting the supply in order to be able to go forward in that way?
No, they were not. But when they get the ball, did they do something good? Second half, they didn't even do anything, Andile. So, but then, Andile, I know people are talking what, but we have to dust ourselves off and quick move on, Andile. We are going to World Cup. We're going to qualify, Andile. It's too
100%.
early to say. Yeah, when it's too early. No, well, we can't, no, blah, blah. If you go to social media, can see now, people are start talking. We are going to qualify. Rwanda is going to visit. They are going to visit us. They're coming to Mzanzi, and we are going to qualify 100% sure.
Peter, I appreciate you. Let's go to Tiamo. Tiamo's out in Sasolburg. Tiamo.
Chabuzet, Andy.
Yeah, no, come on, boss. Willen.
I'm going to say something very controversial. Right? I feel like it's about time that we start addressing issues. We've been normalizing the abnormal for too long. Tabaya pitch contributed a lot to the loss today. Tabaya Khore, the boys had to travel for 3 hours, contributed a lot to the loss today. I'll tell you this, my brother. The day African teams start playing fair is the day an African team will win the World Cup. If rugby, I'm telling you today, if the Springboks had to play other African teams to qualify for the Rugby World Cup, trust me, the Springboks wouldn't be where they are today. That's why. Because that's just how it is in Africa, guys. The sooner we make peace with it, the better. Right? They were going to get there, the Springboks. They were probably going to drive them around Kaiveko for 3 hours. And then after that, going to do that is a rugby sport. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Lisibe, howdy boy. It's 5 after the hour 7. Thank you so much for joining us. Faith, looking lovely in a onesie.
Thank you, sweetie.
For myself and everyone at Sports Night Amplified. Hey, Faith. Pela, and so me.